Well, when you have a service on Christmas, you just have to understand that there are not enough back rows. And everybody, I'm not sure what your expectation is. Just so for the future, I don't single you out if you're sitting in the front or ask you questions on the spot. No. It's just funny how that happens. Welcome and Merry Christmas. We've been in this series during the season of Advent, just talking about what does it mean to live our faith in the midst of life's waiting. I know for me, when I was dreaming of having a family in my younger years, I had all sorts of visions in my head. Maybe I would have kids and see them off on the bus on the first day of school. You just have these images in your head, or maybe on Christmas morning, opening up their presents. What I did not anticipate was really what my life has become, and that is maybe something of an Uber driver for my children. And the waiting I'm doing in the car. I can't, there's so many podcasts I've been listening to. I feel like so many things going on. Actually, this is a shot of me waiting for my son this week. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they can't get anywhere on time, but anyway, this is what life has become. It's become about waiting. And here's the problem. None of us like waiting because waiting produces anxiety. Think about it. You're waiting for a ride to the airport, and the ride's 5 minutes late. What are you feeling on the inside? A little anxiety, a little anger. And then the longer that waiting goes, the more anxious you get. And this is true in life. I mean, my goodness. I used to think it would have been amazing to have dial-up internet in my house at one time. But if I went to your house and you had dial-up internet, I would lose my mind. I would lose it because we hate waiting. We don't like to wait at all. And there's a spiritual version of this. In that when we're waiting for God to show up in our lives, or maybe we're going through a really hard season of our lives, we're waiting for God to do something, it's never fast enough. And we start getting filled with anxiety and frustration, even anger, when it comes to our relationship with God. But faith changes our waiting. Faith changes our waiting to expecting. We're not just waiting, we're expecting God to show up, and that changes how we live now. It's like finding out, just remember finding out when we were pregnant with our first? It wasn't just, okay, great, we'll just wait 9 months. No, you're moving around, you're setting up the nursery, you're doing all the classes. Somehow we got to know how to breathe. I don't know why. I figured that it's very natural. And in the end, I was no help to my wife when she was giving birth. But I was at the classes, right? So it's an act of waiting. It's an expecting. I'm planning, I'm living my life as if God's going to show up. This is what faith does. It changes the waiting. And so we have this season of Advent. We light candles, and maybe some of you enjoy Advent calendars of one variety or another. And the whole idea of this counting down, this waiting, is to understand that God shows up in our waiting. We're always waiting for God to show up for stuff. It's not just celebrating the waiting finally ended when Jesus was born, but we look forward to the waiting we're doing now when Jesus will come back and make all things new. And we're waiting for him to show up in that relationship in our lives, in that circumstance, with our job, with the difficult people that somehow are managed to be in our lives. We're waiting for God to show up. So how do we wait expecting? How do we wait expecting that he will? That we could trust him? This season of Advent meets us in everyday life. We're waiting for and expecting God to show up. About a year ago at this time, we were at Hershey Park. It was during winter break. We decided, let's go to Hershey. And of course, we go there and all the rides are closed. There's 4 rides open. I don't know why. We didn't plan ahead. So we get there, and every line's taking forever. And we get to this critical point where it's the end of the day is at a certain point, and you have about time for 1 more, maybe 2 more if you're lucky. So we get in line for this one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hershey, but it's the shooting game one where you collect points. Okay, nobody's nodding, so you've never been. Anyway. It's like the one that they have at Disney, the Buzz Lightyear one. It's that, but just Hershey. So We get in line for this thing, and it says, okay, it's about a 45-minute wait. We kind of knew what we were getting into. All right, we sit there and we wait. It was 45 minutes, and we had moved maybe 4 feet. And then you start thinking, like, is this going to pick up? Was somebody on a break? And now it's starting to get too late to jump line and try another ride. Like, the park's going to close, like, it's over. We end up sitting in this line, people. It was like north of 2 hours. The problem is, when you get an hour and 20 minutes in, you're like, I've already invested an hour. I've got this sunk cost of an hour and 20 minutes. We're gonna wait as long as this takes. And man, it took a long time. And I'll just tell you, wonderful as that 40-second ride was, it was not worth it. I think for some people, and maybe some of you are feeling this. I know we've all felt it one time or another. Maybe you're feeling this right now. You're wondering spiritually, is it worth the wait for Jesus Christ? Is it worth it? Is it worth investing this time of my life in? That God's going to show up, that I can live faithfully, that my faith can actually have something to do with my everyday life. Is it worth it? Yeah, I get the waiting, I get trusting that God's going to show up, but is God worth the wait? Is the Christian life, is following Jesus, worth the wait? Will the expectations match reality, or am I going to be disappointed? Somehow, some way. We'll get back to that. First, let's read the Christmas story in Luke chapter 2. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. Basically, they were calling for a census. Everybody had to go back to their hometowns. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord." The one you've been waiting for. The one all of the scriptures have been talking about. For hundreds of years, he finally came. He finally showed up. And it changes everything. He says, "This will be a sign to you. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." I wonder if we could jump in a time machine, if we could go back and interview the people that were in and around where Jesus was born. I wonder if we asked them, was it worth the wait, what they would say. I wonder if we ask people that live their lives without knowing Jesus, and at some point in their lives they come to faith in Jesus, if we would ask, was it worth the wait? Is being in a relationship with Jesus worth it? I'll tell you this, and this is just in my own personal story, and I believe the people that you would ask would say a similar thing, and that is, it is so much better than I thought it would be. My faith in Jesus has been the only thing in my life that's never let me down. It has changed everything. Every time I lean into my faith, good things happen. It doesn't mean circumstances aren't hard. It just means something's changing in me. Every single time I perceive, and now I've never heard God speak in an audible voice to me. I don't know if I want that. I think I might be a little freaked out. I don't know. I think I would be so terrified But I've definitely perceived he's wanted me to do things. You've all felt this before. You feel like in your head, like, oh, maybe I should go reach out to that person. Or maybe that person I haven't talked to in a long time, maybe I should reach out to them. Or I see that person struggling at the grocery store, like maybe I should help them out. These are all things, these are like little God winks, God nudges, trying to help us know what to do. And every time I've done that, I have felt complete on the inside. Like that thing that was missing. It's so much better than I thought it would be. Maybe you're not feeling that this morning. Maybe you're not sure. Maybe grandma dragged you here today. It's okay. But here's a couple of reasons why it's been so much better than I thought it would be. The first one is realizing Jesus is for us. I think many people think that God just wants something from us. And so we don't want to have a relationship with God because we just don't want to, whatever the thing is, we're worried about giving up. Oh, God's so demanding. He wants us to live like, I don't know, we have in our heads that God just wants us to follow a whole bunch of rules. And that every time we don't, he's like waiting to ding us, like he's got a cosmic whistle that he's blowing and he's calling fouls and he's putting us in the penalty box or whatever. When in reality, he laid down his own life for us. Jesus was born for us. That name, Emmanuel, God with us, also means that he's God for us. Maybe if we remembered what he's for us. John 3:16 reminds us, "For God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life." Or Romans 5:8, God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. In other words, he didn't wait until we got our act together. Oh, good for you. Okay, good. You're good now. You're forgiven. While you were still sinners, God is for us. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? I don't know. Some of you this morning, you might not feel like God is for you. Maybe God hasn't delivered on the expectations you were hoping for in some area of your life. But what if what he wants to give you is so much better than what you're expecting? The second reason why it's been better than I thought, he is with us. You ever think about what, we see the word Emmanuel, God with us, what that really means? The fact that he chose to be born. So think of it this way. He creates all of existence and chooses to limit his own power by being born as a human being, living a human life, and then dying on the cross by the humans. He is with us in every way he can be with us, because he came as one of us. Now, why did he come as one of us? Well, I think it's a little bit like this old story that I heard at camp one year, which has always stuck with me. Some of you have heard this before. It's the chicken coop scenario. So, farmer has some chickens. Chicken coop catches on fire. So the farmer opens the gate to the chicken coop, starts getting the chickens to go out. They don't listen. They just kind of sit there as if everything's fine. But the farmer knows these chickens are all going to die unless he does something about it. So he gets a little more frantic. They're not moving. So he starts picking up the chickens and running out and tossing them out. No chickens were harmed in this story. Right? And tossing them out, and they just go running right back in. And he thinks to himself, if only I could become a chicken, I could communicate in such a way that they would all leave and they would be saved. Crazy and weird as that is, it's a little bit like that. God became one of us so that he can show us, he could be with us And he could tell us and beckon us to come and follow him out the door, out the burning building, so that we may be saved. God is with us. Even in that moment when Lazarus is about to be raised from the dead, but he's not, he's in the tomb. He sits there weeping with his sisters. Why? When he knows Lazarus is going to rise again. Because he's with us. He was with them. Every step of your life's path, he is with you, feeling the roller coaster. He loves you. He cares for you. All of that matters to him. Even in the end, he's going to make you new. He's with you all of life's journey. So why did he have to become one of us? Well, as an ancient old church father said, St. Anselm of Canterbury. I know you got posters of him on your wall. Here's how he said it. Since only God can satisfy the penalty of sin, forgive sin, and only a human ought to, because human beings are the one that sin, then it is necessary for a God-human to do it. He came as one of us for all of us. Or as Hebrews 4 says, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. He is with us as one of us. He is for us. No matter what you've been led to believe, no matter what ways you're still waiting for God to show up, just know he is for you. He is with you. And he uses things in our lives to get our attention. Sometimes they're bad things. You know, a lot of people, when they have a tragedy in their life, they end up turning back to God. I don't believe God caused that tragedy, but it's a way God can leverage that tragedy to remind us that he's with us and for us. Or sometimes it's other things. Sometimes it's great things that lead us into relationship with God, but he's always throwing signs down. You remember a wonderful theological film, Bruce Almighty? When Bruce, he's driving his car, you remember the scene? He's driving his car, he's like, God, just throw me a sign. Why would you throw me a sign? And there's a truck full of signs. He's like, just give me a sign. And like most of the time, we're not really listening. But this is why he used miracles. He used miracles to get people's attention. And what did he tell the shepherds? He said, let this be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. Just so you know, when you follow up on these signs, I'm going to confirm them for you. Why? Because I'm with you. I'm for you. I love you. I gave myself for you. I know life hasn't been perfect. For some of you, it's been downright tragic. But it doesn't change the fact he is with you and for you, and he will never leave you. You ever think about the way that he was born? There's so many parallels with the way that he died. I think this is all meant to be a sign. Pay attention. Pay attention to him. Something deeper is going on here with this Jesus. Think about it. Both in his birth and in his death, he's rejected by people. There's no room in the inn. He's rejected by everybody that he was with. Both Mary and King Herod were part of both his birth and his death. The spice myrrh was brought to him as a gift, and it was used to bury him later. He was wrapped in cloth in both instances. There was an honorable man named Joseph at both his birth and his death. Wise men recognized him. Chief priests and scribes were around. And he came and left this world with humility and vulnerability to show that he's not just for the elite. He's not just for the best of the best. He's not for the rich. He's for everybody. All of us. And the God of the universe submitted himself even to death on the cross because he's for us and with us. But here's the thing that really changed my life. He is in us. He is in us. We put our faith in him, and he's closer than our own skin. He's in us. He makes us new. He helps us navigate this crazy life of ours in a direction that is faithful to what he wants. And whatever it is that you're hoping for, I promise you, he will exceed your expectations. Galatians 2:20 sums it up. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. And here's a big thing. He's all of that in spite of us. Like the classic song, Stairway to Heaven. Listen, there may be some people in this room that don't know Stairway to Heaven. I love you. That is my Christmas gift to you. I want you to go home, look up that song, just hit repeat. And if you play guitar, look out. You're going to want to know how to play that immediately. Anyway, for all of us, we think that there's this stairway to heaven. That, well, if I go to church on Christmas Eve, check that one off. If I give to the church, ooh, that's a good one. If I volunteer, I'm constantly climbing this stairway. And maybe at the end, I'll get close enough to God that I can be let in the door. You in the back, come on, you're close enough. But this is the incredible thing about what Jesus did. This is why it matters so much that he was born, that he lived, that he died, that he rose again. Because it's the only religion in the world where God came down to us. It's all grace. We don't deserve it. We have it because he gave it to us. God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So I want to ask you this morning, as you're thinking about all the Christmas stuff, which is so fun and great, is it worth the wait? Is faith worth it? If I put my life and trust in Jesus, is it going to be worth it? And I'm going to tell you this: it's so much better than you think it's going to be. I heard it explained this way. It's like your whole life you're running around trying to find the answer. Trying to find what's going to give you joy, what's going to give you hope, what's going to give you peace. And you're exhausted. Your legs hurt. Because you just can't seem to find it on your own. You think you landed somewhere and then it doesn't quite work. Okay, you're on to the next answer. But putting your faith in Jesus is like resting in a chair. You could rest the whole weight of your life in him. And you can experience peace. And you don't have to run anymore. I promise you that faith changes everything. God's for you and with you, and he's going to show up no matter what's going on in your life. And I guarantee you it's worth it. Amen.